a real pleasure it is to be back at Edinburgh University, to be with such a distinguished panel of speakers, academics, scientists, Lord Steele, and to be with an audience that has come out on a Saturday morning to hear the arguments about the Union and in favour of the integration of research across the Union. I was not only a student here, I was once temporarily, for a very short time, a lecturer also at Edinburgh University. And I found that universities stand for integrity and objectivity and impartiality and the search for truth and the pursuit of knowledge. And these were all the qualities I had to leave behind when I went into politics. I'm also pleased that this morning the theme is essentially about the interdependence of the nations of the United Kingdom. And we are really living in an interdependent world. And some of you may know that late in life, Albert Einstein, when he finished his path-breaking scientific research, he decided to write books about the future of the world and talked about the interdependence, which is essentially the theme of what we are talking about today. And he used to publish a book every year in his later life, and he used to do book tours around the United Kingdom. And he would go and speak in one place, and then he'd have a chauffeur drive him to the next place, he'd do a 15-minute speech, then go to the next place, so he could get through lots of different venues in one night. And one time, he was going to one place. His chauffeur said to Mr. Einstein, "You're looking very tired," because he was an old man. "I've heard your speech on so many occasions. It's exactly the same thing you say all the time. I've memorized it. Why don't you just take a rest and sit in your office, because you're tired, and I will do the speech myself." And Einstein, tired as he was, agreed to this process. And so, right enough, the chauffeur got onto the stage and memorized the speech. Einstein was sitting in the front row of the audience. And as usual, the speech lasted 15 minutes, went well, great applause, and the chauffeur was just about to leave the stage when the chairman suddenly said, "Are there any questions?" And the chauffeur was standing on the stage as the first question came, of course, a scientific one. What is the relationship between the theory of relativity and quantum mechanics? And the chauffeur was temporarily rooted to the spot, unsure what to say. And then suddenly he found his way. He said, "Look, ladies and gentlemen, this question is so simple and straightforward. I'm going to ask my chauffeur to go Now, there are many reasons for Scotland and Britain staying together. We saw yesterday inside, when I was there, the aircraft carrier being launched, and the defence and security, which is common to the whole of the United Kingdom, is something that I believe is valued by most people in Scotland as well as in the rest of the United Kingdom. There is the economic reason for being part of the United Kingdom, and I think people sometimes forget that 70% of our trade, 70% of our exports are to England. I mean, we are not like Norway, where only 6% of its exports go to its neighbouring country, Sweden. We are totally integrated into the United Kingdom as an economy. There is, of course, the environmental reason that pollution is no respecter of borders, and we're part of one United Kingdom, a small, vulnerable island, where the decisions that are made about the environment have got to be made together if they're going to be sensible about our long-term future. But you know, in the last century, I think the most important argument for us being part of the same United Kingdom is that we pool and share our resources for the benefit of all. You know that when you look at pensions, we all contribute to our UK pensions, and by pooling and sharing the resources, we get the best deal for everybody in every part of the United Kingdom. It's true of healthcare that while it's a devolved matter for the administration of healthcare, the funding of healthcare is provided by national insurance and taxation across the whole of the United Kingdom, and so we pool and share our resources, spread the risk, and that is to the benefit of everybody, in my view, in the United Kingdom. And then when it comes to universities and research, when you think of it, the great advantages of pooling and sharing the available resources for research in every area from scientific to artistic, cultural and medical research, which is one of the themes today. Scotland is a huge beneficiary of this system. With 8% of the population, we get 30% of the university research funding of the United Kingdom. With 8% of the population, we get about 13% also of the philanthropic and foundation and charitable money that goes into research in the United Kingdom. And while Scottish companies actually do a limited amount of the R&D of the United Kingdom, perhaps only about 5%, we, as a result of the money that is put in from public funds and charitable and foundation funds into research, get a deal that is not just to the benefit of Scotland, of course, but by pooling and sharing our resources across the whole of the United Kingdom, we get the best benefit for everyone. Now, Sir Paul Nurse, who is with us this morning, and I am so pleased and privileged that he has come to join us today. Paul, thank you very much. A Nobel Prize winner who did his research at Edinburgh University in the initial stages of his work and then went to Rockefeller and is now doing the Crick Institute in London, is far too modest a man to say that he is now heading the biggest research project in medicine in the United Kingdom, the Crick Institute. And that is a £650 million project, £100 million budget a year, with several hundred, I think 1,400 researchers across the whole of the United Kingdom. And I think from his experience, we will be able to hear how it is the case that Scotland will benefit from the biomedical and cancer research that is being done across the whole of the United Kingdom, and for Scotland to be cut off from that research is to the disadvantage of people in every part of the United Kingdom, but particularly, of course, in Scotland. And I hope that as we hear the arguments from David and Hugh and from Paul, we'll appreciate just how important research and development is to the modern economy. We are not going to succeed as a country unless we can innovate and invent in new products and processes. We are not going to be one of the world's great successful economies simply on the basis of a natural resource forever. It has got to depend on the creativity, the innovative research, the ability to develop technology-driven products, niche products and services, and that depends on a successful research and development base. And if we are a beneficiary of this system in the United Kingdom of funding, then it is something that you've got to ask the question, why break up something that has served Scotland well, but also serves the United Kingdom well? Now, I yield to no one in my sense of patriotic pride in Scotland. And I know the other speakers will be able to say exactly the same, and I suspect most people in the audience will feel the same. I remember my first memory of going to London in 1962, when I was a young school pupil, was in the wake of this national humiliation that Scotland had suffered. We'd been beaten at Wembley by England, and some of you may remember, very few of you, some of you may remember the score, and this was football. It was 9 for England, 3 for Scotland. And the Scottish players who played in that team have subsequently denied they were even at Wembley. I take a cry, a guy who scored a goal, he even says he wasn't there. And the goalkeeper, Frank Caffey, was the famous Celtic goalkeeper who let in 9 goals, and things got so difficult. Such was the sense of national pride there, that he had to emigrate, and he went to Australia as far away as he could. And 30 years later, Dennis Law, the famous footballer, met him in Australia, and Frank Caffey, the footballer's first question was, is it safe to come back? And the answer was, of course, no. So I yield to no one in my patriotic pride in supporting Scotland, both at football and in the cultural activities that we're involved in. But this is the issue. There is a patriotic vision about the future of Scotland, a strong sense of pride in Scotland, a belief in a strong Scottish Parliament, a desire it has more powers, but a desire also to maintain the pooling and sharing of resources, which is so important to welfare, to healthcare, to medical research, to research generally, and to our educational and university system. And there is a second vision, the alternative vision, and this is what this debate is about, the nationalist vision, which essentially comes down to this. We've already got a Scottish Parliament. It will have more powers. It comes down to whether you want to break all links with the United Kingdom. And I am totally opposed to that. And I think when you look at the individual policy areas, from pensions to healthcare to medical research, it is not in Scotland's interest. And I end just with one example. If you look at the history of Scotland, then we are very proud of Scottish genius in research, particularly in medical research, but right across the board. And we point to the huge and great examples across the centuries of Scots who've been the inventors of the steam engine, the telephone, the television, radar, right across to the modern inventions, including dolly the sheep, including many of the things that Paul himself has been associated with in his career. But when you look in depth at this, what steam engine was developed with Bolton in England? Alexander Fleming invented penicillin, but he did so as a Scot in London, and it was commercialised by Florian Chain in Cambridge. If you look at Alexander Logie-Baird, his television, although he came from Helensburgh in Scotland, was developed in Hastings in England. If you look at all the other great inventions of the time, there was usually a Scottish and English, or English and Welsh and Irish connection, where the UK is a platform for the development of this research. To put it the other way around, if you think of some of the greatest inventors working from Scotland, Peter Hayes and his work, an Englishman in Scotland who made Scotland his home and has a worldwide Nobel Prize-winning invention to his name. Sir James Black, who was brought up just next door to my father's family in Fife, and developed two of the greatest drugs in history, but he did so as a Scot, working first in Malaysia and then in England. If you look at Dolly the Sheep, Ian Wilmot is an Englishman in Scotland developing his invention. And so the idea that we don't benefit by the interaction between both of our countries is something that I would question, and I think everybody in this audience should think carefully about. The United Kingdom has been a platform where the integration of our research work and research facilities, particularly the interaction of people, has been the basis of doing things best. In 1961, John F. Kennedy gave this presidential address in America. You may remember some of the great words, the torch is passed to a new generation, about young people taking over the world. Ask not what your country can do, ask what you can do for your country. Never negotiate for fear, never fear to negotiate. These great phrases that ring throughout the ages. Richard Nixon, was the defeated candidate in America in 1960, and he was asked which of these words in the famous inauguration address would he like to hear, and he said there was only one: I hereby accept the office of President. But Kennedy said, ask not what America can do for you, ask what together we can do for mankind. And he went on to give what he called the Declaration of Interdependence, and he said America had had a Declaration of Independence, it was now time for a Declaration of Interdependence. That is the way of the modern world, to recognize the integration that has happened, the connections that are important, the togetherness that makes us a community, and also the interdependence of the modern world. And I have no doubt, if we can put this argument in the next few weeks, we will record what is, in my view, a patriotic vote no on behalf of the Scottish people. Thank you very much.